Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be making a very simple Cucumber project in Ruby. Right now we have an empty Cucumber demo project here. First things first, we need to make sure that you have Ruby actually on your computer. From a terminal window or command prompt, you can type this Ruby v command, and if it brings back nothing, you don't have Ruby, you need to get it installed. If it comes back with something like this, you're good to go. Installing Ruby, if you have a Mac, you should already have it. You can see here this rubylang.org. If not, this brew install command should get you up and running. And there's some other directions you might need to follow, but it's a pretty straightforward process on Mac if it's not already installed. If you are on Windows, you can go to rubyinstaller.org/downloads, and you can download the latest recommended Ruby from here. You want to make sure you get the Ruby plus Dev Kit. The Dev Kit's going to have some extra package managers and things for you. They're going to be very helpful in your workflow. Cool. So once Ruby's installed and Ruby V is bringing this back, you're also going to have a tool called Ruby Gems, which is the base package manager essentially that comes packaged with Ruby. And you're going to use Ruby Gems to install another package manager called Bundler, which we're going to use to install Cucumber. This gem install bundler will get that done. If it comes back with something like command gem not found, then your Ruby installation might be messed up and you might have to go back and take a look at it again. Gem install bundler, enter that. Cool. So we've installed bundler 202, one gem installed. So now we have bundler, and we're ready to use that to install Cucumber. We're going to install Cucumber by using bundler to read the gem file of the project. So right now we have just this basic Cucumber demo. We're going to go ahead and make a gem file for it. Just plain, no extension is needed or anything. And you can find the strings that you need to put in here to download things or include packages very easily from rubygems.org and other sources. But this one's just going to be gem Cucumber, real simple. If you need to, you can always, declare versions and things like that here too. We're not going to do that though. Gem Cucumber, we're going to run bundler, and that will be enough to install the packages we need. So this command bundle install will do that for us. So bundler has downloaded all the dependencies we need for Cucumber. We have, Cucumber core, Gherkin, the parser, a few other things. And bundler also generated this gemfile.lock file, which has, again, the dependencies in it. This actually calls out the versions, version specifications. Cool. So now we are actually ready to run some Cucumber tests. We just need to go ahead and write the code for it. One requirement for a directory structure is that the top level directory be called features. There's not really much other requirements than that. That's pretty much it. So yeah, we can kind of go crazy from that. We're going to make a subfolder for our demo today, and we'll just call that demo feature. Oops, that was... Cool. So we have a subdirectory now, and we will call that... We'll go ahead and make the feature file in here. So the feature file where the Gherkin itself is actually going to live, or the BDD, it has to have the .feature extension on it. There we go. There's our first feature file. The basic feature file needs to have this feature keyword followed by the colon and some text. This is what we're going to put for this one. And we'll call our first scenario. We use the scenario keyword. We're going to use the same text. And again, same. Just keeping it simple, so I'm just copy pasting these on down. Cool. So Cucumber, Gherkin is going to read this. There's no code underneath this, though. It's going to tell us something like implement this, essentially. Let's go ahead and see that. So the Cucumber keyword fires up Cucumber, and then we give it the path to our test. Cool. So yeah, it ran. And you can see it's coming back with this message, scenario is undefined. And it even gives you a super helpful thing here. We can actually just grab this text if you want, and we can put that in some code. We're going to go ahead and make a directory under feature called step definitions. And in here, we'll go ahead and make a folder to hold our Ruby code. We'll just call that demo steps with the RB extension for Ruby. And I can just copy and paste this here. And we can actually try and run that. And this should come back as pending. Yeah, so now it's pending. The pending keyword is something you can put inside your step code. If you're working on a test, if you had a bunch of code under here that's, gobbledygook or whatever, or it's just work in progress, you can put this pending keyword in here, and it'll just kind of skip that test. It'll give you this message when it comes to it. So that's what that's doing. But we don't want pending. We want to actually go ahead and return something. So let's go ahead and do that. We're just going to have it put this string that cukes are running wild. And let's go ahead and run it again. Awesome. So now we have string returning. Cukes are running wild, as cukes do. This is giving us a pass result. We don't have an assertion library or anything giving us back anything, and it's giving a valid exit code, so it's just going to report passed. So yeah, those are the steps. Really, the only hard part about this is just getting Ruby on your computer and getting those commands down to the bundler installed. Bundler will run for you, install these dependencies. That being done, you just have to define this feature with an associated step to it. Word about the step code, the adverb here that's given, doesn't really matter. The only thing that does matter is this step matches some Ruby code. Whatever Ruby code this text matches up with in the step files is the code it's going to run. This can be given, when, then, and it doesn't really care about that. When Gherkin runs, it effectively flattens this entire project and runs the step code from there. So it doesn't care where the step code is placed, basically, as long as the step code is underneath the features directory. If the step code is outside that, it's not going to find it. So that's another note on directory structure. If you kind of make it like this, you should be fine. So yeah, that's it. Okay, so now that we have Cucumber running some steps, we're going to go ahead and make some API calls and actually do a kind of test against the Postman Echo endpoint. So yeah, let's set that up. The first thing we need to do is set up our stir client. So let's check out what stir is. Stir is a gem made by some folks at Mannheim. It's called stands for Service Testing in Ruby. It is built on top of HTTP Party, which is a very popular Ruby library for sending HTTP requests. And Stir adds some functionality to that to make API testing easier for us. Two of the main things Stir does is lets you manage your environment and version in a very easy to do way. So if you have multiple environments and multiple versions of your app, it's very easy to configure that through Stir. A Stir client is a pretty simple class. Just looks like this. You just define a Ruby class, you have it inherit from Stir REST client, and then you can start making requests with that client. There's three main parts to the Stir client. The first part is going to be the endpoint definitions. And right here, we can see an example of an endpoint definition. This is a GET request. The name of it is just post by ID. And then we're giving it a string here that's the actual path. And we interpolate values into that string using the syntax here, the percent curly braces syntax. So yeah, we'll have a list of endpoint definitions. The second part is going to be this part with the response on it. This is generally parsing code, and it's code that we execute on the response itself. It's just a way to help keep our code clean and parsing code inside the client itself. The third part is just going to be plain Ruby code that you can use to further parse things. If you need a filter, get tokens, things like that, you can also do that in there. So yeah, that's the basics of a Stir client. This configuration is required, and I have placed that Stir configuration right here. This can be put inside of an environment file or some kind of initializer. It can be put in a lot of places. I chose to just define it inside the Stir class itself. So I'm just requiring the Stir library to do that and defining this configuration inside of it. This code, project root here, does exactly that. It just gets project root, and it uses this Ruby code to do it, this file.expand path with the file join file.dirname file. So all that does is gives us project root for my project. And for the actual config path, I take that project root and join it to the services directory, which is the directory I've defined. So you can call this whatever you want, place it wherever you want. You just have to make sure that reflects in the actual path you set for it. Config environment and version are not terribly important for this part of the test, but those are parts of what makes Stir really good at what it does. Cool. So we define the location where our Stir config and clients are going to be. So let's go ahead and make those. So under the services folder, I'm going to make a clients folder. And also going to make a config folder. And in client, we're going to put our Postman client. Just like that. So our Postman client is going to be a Ruby class called Postman client. And we're going to make that inherit from Stir. So it is now a Stir client. Like that. We are testing the Postman Echo endpoint. So we're going to go ahead and define the path for that inside the Stir client. Now for the Postman Echo endpoint right here is the host name. The path is just /get. We look up here, /get. There's also some parameters, and we're going to mess with those in just a little bit. For right now, we're just going to worry about the basic one. So we're going to make a get Postman Echo endpoint definition in here. We'll give it that path, /get. Let's go ahead and also make the config. So we'll make the config file. The config file has to match the client that it's holding the configs for. So in this case, we named our class Postman client. This is camel case. The file will name the same, but will be snake case. So post_man_client .wmal, or sorry, WYAML, just like that. So in here, we'll go ahead and make our YAML file. That's the version which matches what we had for our config here. And the environment, test environment. The only thing we need to worry about setting is just the base URI. And that'll be that https://postman-echo.com. Just like that. Okay. So we have a Postman configured. We've got a endpoint definition on it. That's kind of all the setup work we really need to do to get this working for us. So I made a feature to test Postman. So we're going to send some params, and we're going to see if we get those params back. First, I'm going to go ahead and test and make sure that we can instance a stir client. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in here, binding.pry. When I run this, basically the Ruby's going to run all the Ruby code it needs to, and then it's going to stop here. And when it does that, all objects are going to be available to you. And I'm using Gherkin to excuse me, pass in parameters, in this case, Haya and Buddy. And I'm passing those in as message 1 and message 2 to actually be used inside the step code here. Let's go ahead and run it though and see if we can instance our class. So I'm using cucumbers, giving it the path, feature/demo.feature, and the line number in this case, because that line number corresponds with the cucumber here. So yeah, and it stopped right there. Cool. And like I was saying, we have message 1, message 2 available to us that got passed in through Cucumber. All right, well, let's see if we can make save an instance of our client. So postman client.new. Awesome. Just pull up client and see that it's got some stuff on it. Cool. And we should be able to go ahead and actually use that endpoint definition right here, get postman echo on that client. Awesome. And we are, in fact, getting a response back. This object is now a stir object. As a stir object, it has some attributes on it, such as response. Brings back just response for us. Response has some other stuff on it, like code. So if we wanted just a status code, we can see that get request resulted in a 200. You can even see the request itself we sent. So here we can see our actual request we sent, and along with some other info, the adapter being used, and things like that. So a lot of useful stuff here. Okay, cool. So we've demonstrated that we have our stir client sending requests. Let's go ahead and actually code this up. So I'm going to use a instance variable to get this instance of the Postman client. And once I have that, we will say get Postman echo. We're going to do a few other things. So we want to actually see the parameters that we're passing coming back. So we can see in Postman echo, you can send parameters, and it will send back this args object with the parameter key values that you sent. Let's go ahead and try that. We're going to set up this string to take some query parameters. We're just going to call them mess1 for message 1. Mess2. This equals there. So this is going to give us now the path that we want with the queries in it. And if we pass these queries in when we call this method, we can use Ruby key value arguments to pass those values in. And that's pretty easy. The key value arguments, pretty easy looking. We'll just say mess1 is going to be message1 that we passed in, and mess2, whoops, is just going to be message2. Okay. Reset my breakpoint back to here. Okay. So the idea is this. Here, we are going to get the Postman stir client. The instance of it will save in this instance variable. If we were to take this off, that would just be a plain local Ruby variable, which would be fine, but then it wouldn't be available in any other code. It would just be scoped to this one block here. But we want it available in the rest of the test. So to do that, we just make that instance variable. And so I'll be able to call at Postman client down here and get information from this. Once that's instance, we're going to send Postman echo passing in message1 and message2 as MESS underscore 1 and MESS underscore 2 passed into here and should send those parameters for us. The code should stop at this breakpoint and we can take a look and see what we're getting back. So let's go ahead and do that. So everything ran. Postman client. Response came back, although it did not send the args. Oh, so I didn't save this. That's why. Now we can see mess1 and mess2 are coming back. They're both coming back as buddy. So I think that's just a bug in our code. Yep. So I called both of these mess2. That should both be mess1. Okay. Go and try this again. Our response is coming back with Haya and Buddy. So I fixed that bug. Now it's coming back. So this is looking pretty good. So our actual step code is the then Haya and Buddy will be returned. So we need to evaluate this response and have it, make sure that the values we passed in are the ones we're getting back. So how do we do that? So first thing we're going to do is put in some parsing code in our client so that we can call at Postman client, call a method on that, and get back these two values packaged up nicely for us. So we don't want to put any parsing code in here. So it's pretty easy to implement that. We'll go ahead and do one of the second things that we have on here. So we're going to create a response method. We're going to call it Postman args. And this code is just going to take response, and it's going to return what's underneath args. So yeah, which we can actually see happen live if we want to. It's going to do this and return this little object for us, which is awesome. We want to format it just a little bit. We're going to use some plain old Ruby to do that. So we're just going to make a plain method in here that returns a hash. So this method here, postman message, returns a hash with two keys, message 1, message 2. And all it's doing is parsing the response, parsing down args and getting what's at mess1 and mess2 and just returning this in a hash. So what we can go ahead and do is run this code again, and we'll call that method now. And instead of going through all these steps, it should just return that for us. And something happened. Yes. So I defined this method. I need to wrap that up. So there we go. Okay, and here we are. Now we have Postman. Instead of doing like response args and then like, could do mess1 here. Instead of doing all that, we'll just do that Postman message, and we see we get back this hash. Real nice. With key value pairs for us. Very appropriate for study for testing or analyzing API responses. So let's go ahead and make the actual assertion now. So I just typed in Postman client.postman message.values and brought back this array. We're going to do a pretty simple assertion on this. And this is where we're going to start using the Ruby assertion library, which is called RSpec. This is a unit testing library, very powerful, very popular for Ruby. And it gives us functionality like this expect. So we're going to say expect postman client dot postman. Whoops, I did that. Postman message dot values dot to include, and this is also RSpec. Message 1, message 2. And we can actually test this code out inside our terminal. That comes back true. So yeah, code will run and will assert that we are getting back the messages we sent. There we go. So stir sent the message and it got the message back, just like that. So we accomplished that with just a few lines. Of course, after the configuration and everything. Normally, too, this Postman client setup here is normally taken care of in a hook. So you don't even normally have that. So we could have accomplished all that with just these 2 lines. And then a few lines, of course, in our actual Postman client. So yeah, that is how you send a basic request with stir.